World athletics is overstepping its boundaries by implementing immigration policies on sovereign nations, effectively appointing themselves as the gatekeepers of who counts as a real citizen. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how and why that's a problem. The recent controversy over Kichuk's new U20 world record provides a good place to take a look at the broader scope of the issue and to provide some context of what is going on. We're going to talk about Kichuk's situation and relate it to something even bigger. Since Kichuk's 19.67 second 200 meter, ranking him in the top 16 of all time, there have been many critics of his race, stating the race was in non-repeatable unicorn conditions, to faulty wind readers, to being a statistical anomaly. Considering 7 of the 8 runners ran personal bests in his race, massive ones at that, there's probably something to those theories. But that's not why we're going to talk about this performance. The virality of this race has reached escape velocity outside of the orbit of track and field and has landed into the land of politics. There have been plenty of social media posts over the last week about Kichuk himself, around the claim that he's not really Australian. The thought is that given Australia was colonized by Europeans and Kichuk is not of European lineage, then he is not Australian, especially to those individuals whose family settled in Australia and built the country to what it is today. Kichuk has gotten himself involved in the hot and tense issue of immigration by his own excellence. Even in his great performance, the greatest ever by a U20 athlete in the 200, nationalists struggle to accept it on behalf of Australia. Immigration sentiment in Australia has been trending unfavorably over the past few years, and since Kichuk looks different than Europeans that settled in Australia, combined with the fact that he set a world record as an Australian, some nasty comments have been made online, a lot of which are totally irrelevant considering Kichuk's not an immigrant. His parents are. Kichuk's parents came to Australia from South Sudan as refugees in 2005. Kichuk was born in 2007 in Ipswich, Australia. And if you were to consider birthright citizenship as a form of immigration, it's one of the less controversial forms, as most Western world countries have it. Yet it's due to Kichuk's physical appearance as the main reason why much of this controversy has happened. So let's look at a looser form of immigration in the context of the world of track and field. Athletes all the time aren't even born in the country they're competing for, yet they have citizenship and compete at global championships for that country. The likes of Mo Farah, Marco Arap, and Muhammad Ahmed come to mind. All of those athletes were born in foreign countries before immigrating to Canada and Britain in their childhood, all of which have medaled at the Olympics on behalf of their country, and they were celebrated as such. Mo Farah was knighted in the UK. So even though Kichuk's parents aren't from Australia, clearly he is Australian enough to compete for Australia. So let's look at an even looser form of immigration in the context of track and field. Athletes all the time have established themselves as inevitable world contenders or global medalists, and then transfer to a country they want to compete under. The most famous case in my books is Wilson Kichuk transferring his allegiance to Denmark from Kenya in the 90s, becoming a full citizen of Denmark in 1998, and competing at World Championships and the Olympics in the 800 meter, as well as setting the world record on behalf of Denmark. And this is fine. If Denmark or any other country accepts or denies an immigrant or transfer of allegiance, as it's called in athletics, then that's their prerogative. But this is where World Athletics, the international governing body of track and field, is intervening, determining whether an athlete's connection to their country meets a standard they invented themselves. On April 16th, it was announced that 11 allegiance transfer requests to Turkey had been refused by World Athletics Nationality Review Panel. The likes of discus gold medalist Rajay Stona, shot put bronze medalist Rahindra Campbell, ex-marathon world record holder Brigid Kosgei, and more. World Athletics blocked these moves because they labeled it a coordinated recruitment strategy by the Turkish government. They claim the Turkish state-funded club Enka was essentially out on a shopping spree, offering lucrative contracts to buy a competitive team for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. And that's the word that keeps showing up in these articles, the word lucrative. Do you know what these lucrative contracts are reported to look like? Reports claim that the offers were from $3,000 to $7,000 per month. Your local garbage man makes about that. No offense to garbage men out there, but it's just harder to be an Olympian objectively. But imagine buying an Olympic medalist allegiance to train full-time for nothing but to compete at the 2028 Olympics for $5,000 a month. What a deal. But imagine the state of that athlete's circumstance to even accept that. To drop all of their sponsors and then sit out the next 3 years of global competitions, as it is required by World Athletics guidelines if you are switching allegiances of countries. That doesn't just seem like a lot of money, because it isn't. And lucky you, you don't need to imagine this. The Nigerian sprinter Alifi, one of the 11 athletes denied as being a Turkish athlete, felt betrayed because she missed the Tokyo 2020 Olympics because of her federation didn't drug test her enough to meet guidelines. And then she missed competing in the 100 meter at the 2024 Olympics in Paris because her federation failed to register her for her event. Whoops. To World Athletics, these athletes are mercenaries. But this is where the consistency falls apart. Why is it a mercenary move when a group of athletes seek a contract in Turkey, but it's the American dream when an athlete moves to the US to compete in the NCAA and eventually switches to the Stars and Stripes? Bernard Lagat and Paul Chelimo come to mind. Why was it acceptable for Winfried Yavi to move to Bahrain at the age of 15, but it's a threat to the integrity of the sport for Rajay Stona to seek a professional contract in Turkey as a full-grown man? The reality is that many of these athletes aren't mercenaries, they are administrative refugees. They're fleeing from a broken system to one that actually works. They're trying to escape poverty while trying to achieve greatness. And if that greatness isn't embraced or encouraged by your own nation, then there has to be another, or there's no greatness at all. World Athletics should have no say in this regardless. Yet not only do they have their thumb on the scale, they have their whole ass on the scale. They're telling athletes, your country can fail you, but you aren't allowed to leave. Whether it's Gout being told he isn't Australian enough despite being born there, or the Turkey 11 being told they're not Turkish enough to legally switch. We are witnessing commentary and unwarranted action by an institution that should have no say in the matter. Because right now, World Athletics is no longer just a governing body in our sport. They are trying to govern human identity and labor rights. Is that what the world needs from World Athletics? It's not enough that they're a monopoly and control all the major cash flows into our sport. They need to influence the trickle of money that made it directly to athletes and act like it's an integrity issue. And this is such a myopic way of looking at it too, being one of integrity. I'm sure these athletes are still proud to be born in their nation, but their flag can be as much as a cage as it is a symbol of their pride. And I couldn't imagine falling on my sword and fading into retirement without achieving my lifelong goals because of my own national federation's inadequacy or because of some administrative bureaucrat's negligence, corruption, or mismanagement of money. To get to this level of competition and to be denied an opportunity to live a middle-class existence while training is outright being denied. Suffer for the integrity of the sport. You didn't make the next Olympics because your training situation wasn't good enough? I don't care. This is World Athletics' perspective. They don't care. There's always more of you. And God forbid you become a mercenary to change that. And on that note, I'll see you guys next time. I have a feeling that was fucking awful.